the Miami Dolphins 2025 season, it was really it really surprised me that the Dolphins actually got 7 wins this season. To be honest, because you look at you look at really this team and how it was coached, and how the team has been set up the last year or two. And I was never convinced that this team was gonna be a playoff contending team. And the only reason they got third in the division because how bad the New York Jets are. The Jets weren't as bad. They would have been butt last in their division. Um, their draft. I mean, again, their draft approach this off season. Well, the 2025 season was defensive end Kenneth Grant from Michigan, which again you're beefing up that defense, which needs to happen. That was 13th in the first round. Then Jonas Savane, guard from Arizona. So again, you're beefing up that offensive line. Then you made about four. You traded away a couple of picks to the Raiders twice. The Eagles, the Texans, and the Raiders again. Then you go later on in the rounds where you draft nose tackle Jordan Phillips from Maryland. You draft Jason Marshall Jr., quarterback from Florida. Safety Dante Trader Jr. Oliver Gordon II, running back from Oklahoma State. You trade later rounds to Bears football and the Texans, and then you draft a quarterback in this draft class. Ultimately, knowing that you're sorry about this Tua Army, Tua fanboys, the Tua Nation. But Tua was never that guy. He can never stay healthy in a regular season. You're not going to push up and actually win anything with Tua. I'm not saying that you're going to win anything with Quinn Euler either, but Quinn Euler to me, again, if he's given the chance, he could be a good backup option in the NFL. And then Zeke Biggers, defensive end. And then you look at really the weapons they have: Donovan Edwards, Devontae H.M., like I said, Oliver Gordon II, Jalen Wright, Jalen Waddle. They have Nick Westbrook as well, Greg Dulwich, Julian Hill. They have some good weapons on tight end and wide receiver and running back. But ultimately, they finished 7-10. They only won 7 games all year, and Chris Greer was fired on Halloween. They did it on Halloween. He's taking his kids out to Halloween, and there he is, Chris Greer invited, which ultimately should have happened anyway. He was consistently messing up this team in the draft. Drafted the wrong quarterback into a number of years ago, and just hiring Brian Flores at the time, that wasn't a good option. Wasn't the best thing to do. Hiring Mike McDaniel, thinking that he was gonna maybe get some of that offensive genius that he had in San Francisco, didn't really translate too well. So Chris Greer was fired, and then at that point it was 2-7 for the regular season. And then when I think Chris Greer's gonna get fired, maybe Mike McDaniel's gonna get fired as well. But no, they prolonged that a bit more, waited till the end of the season. And they fired Mike McDaniel after week 18, but ultimately they didn't get off to the best of starts. They were 1-6 after week 7, and then they finally started getting after week 7 is where they kind of picked up the rhythm here. They ended week 11 being a 4-17 before the bye week, and that was beating like the Bills and beating the Commanders in overtime. Then after the bye week, they beat the Saints, and then they beat the Jets on the road. And then their next win is on week 17, the second to last game of the season, and that's a win against the Buccaneers, which they go 7-9, and then 7-10 when they lose to the Patriots in a division game, and they get destroyed, giving up 38 points on the road. And ultimately, like I said, Mike McDaniel was fired. In comes new GM John Eric Sullivan, who has been with the Green Bay Packers for a number of years in different front office roles. So I'm interested to see what happens with John Eric Sullivan, if he can turn around this team, the Dolphins. New head coach is Jeff Hafferday. Jeff Hafferday comes in. He again was a And now again, you're going from an offensive-minded head coach to another defensive-minded head coach, and a Jeff Hafferty who came from the Packers. He was their defensive coordinator of the Packers, and the Packers defense wasn't the best, and here he is coming in his first head coaching job. And then your offensive coordinator, Bobby Sloak comes in, offensive coordinator, and Sean Duggan comes in. Now, I think this is Sean Duggan's first defensive coordinating job, but he comes in to fix that defense. Tua, even though that he was benched for later parts of the season, he was benched for Quinn Ewers anyway, the last couple of games. But the games he started, he only put up 2,666 passing yards. HM had over 1,350 rushing yards. Tua didn't even get over 3,000 passing yards this season. Their offense was really bad in 2025, and that's with an offensive-minded head coach, by the way. They were 25th out of 32. They had the 25th best offense in the league. Their defense was slightly better, 24 out of 32. But yeah, if I'm looking at this team, they're over $3 million in the cap. They're over $3 million in cap space, which ultimately doesn't mean shit because you can move around that by not renewing contracts. Again, Tyreek Hill, I think I saw a couple of days ago that Tyreek Hill has left the Dolphins. He's renewing his contract. So again, that's more money that you can save up now for the salary cap. You do have a first round pick, 11th overall. You do have a second round pick, 43rd overall. You have a 75th round pick. 75th round. You have a third round pick, 75th overall. Then you have an 87th pick, and then you have a 90th pick. The additions that this team needs, now again, they have a defensive-minded head coach. You've got to beef up that defense. With a defensive-minded head coach, you've got to make sure that defense is hopefully in the top 10, and you definitely need to address that going into 2026. You need to beef up that defense. Get yourself some edge rushers. Get yourself a quarterback. Get yourself some more linebackers. I think that is the key to this team, especially with having a defensive-minded head coach. Their offense needs to be addressed. I think the offensive line has to be addressed. You need 4 new starters on the offensive line. You need to look at the wide receiver options as well, because apart from HM putting up 1,000 rushing yards, there's nobody on the receiving end that's putting up even close to those numbers. So you need to definitely look at wide receiver. Tight end has to be addressed. I think, like I said, you need a left tackle and a right tackle. You need a couple of new starters. You need a guard, I think, an outside guard, an inside guard. There's a lot of work for this team, but ultimately the biggest thing that this team needs in 2026 is they need to get the quarterback position right. Now, I don't think that they're going to go into the 2026 draft and go, oh, Ty Simpson, second round pick, that's our guy. I don't see that happening. So ultimately, they don't have a lot of cap space. Now again, they can maneuver around that. Now, quarterbacks on the free market, you could probably go for an Aaron Rodgers, but it's going to cost a lot of money. Maybe you could go for I don't know. Could you go for Baker Mayfield? I don't really know, but you probably look at the free agency market and go, maybe we go for like a Jameis Winston or something. Like, that wouldn't be the baddest option, because yeah, Jameis Winston isn't the best quarterback, but again, you have him for a year, and if you're in the tank mode for 2027 with a new GM, you can look at the 2027 draft class and go, oh, I like this quarterback. Or you go with Quinn Ewers for a year. I know it's not going to be the best because Quinn Ewers just has his flaws, but you go for Quinn Ewers knowing that your goal is to tank for 2026, for 2027. Then ultimately, if you come out of 2026 being like a 3-10 team or a 3-15 team, like again, or whatever, knowing that the end goal is to get a quarterback in that 2027 draft class, then you've actually not done you've not done too bad. But the biggest thing is they need a lot of, this Dolphins team needs a lot of work, and for them to get 7 wins this year was pretty impressive, to be honest, because I didn't even see them getting past 4 wins.